Welcome back, wrestling WWE fans. Tonight we take you deep into the chaos that unfolded in Paris, a night that was supposed to be about spectacle but became something far more haunting. The marquee read John Cena vs. Logan Paul, a clash between generational icon and viral sensation, a battle that promised fireworks and delivered them. But beyond the spotlight of this encounter lurked shadows that had nothing to do with United States glory or influencer bravado. The weight of the bloodline hung heavy, and every movement in the ring felt like the calm before a storm, years in the making. Cena walked into Paris with the pride of a man who has carried WWE through eras of change, his every step a reminder of loyalty and tradition. Logan Paul, meanwhile, brought the arrogance of youth, the brash defiance of someone who has never known the burden of legacy. The fans roared, divided between admiration and disdain, but something about the atmosphere was different. It wasn't just a clash of names, it was a night where old wounds and family fractures were waiting to tear open under the brightest lights. Please like, share and subscribe for more WWE content. The Bloodline's shadow has stretched over every storyline for years, and even when they are not the advertised headline, their presence lingers like smoke. Roman Reigns and his empire built dominance through fear, manipulation, and family loyalty, but with that came pressure that no dynasty could endure forever. The resentment grew, the silence between brothers became deafening, and the cracks widened. Paris wasn't supposed to be their stage, but the whispers said otherwise. As Cena and Logan locked up, the match flowed with intensity, Logan showcasing his athleticism while Cena relied on grit and timing. The crowd swayed with every near fall, with every high-risk moment, but beneath the cheers there was unease. Some fans could feel it before it even happened, a tension that had nothing to do with who would win or lose. The Bloodline has always known when to strike, and Paris, as it turned out, was the chosen moment. The history of the Bloodline is a history of power gained and trust lost. Roman stood at the top as tribal chief, but his reign was built on sacrifices made by others, sacrifices that left scars. For years, family members followed because they felt they had no choice, trapped between love and fear, bound by blood but aching for freedom. That silent resentment carried itself into Paris, hidden in the shadows until the moment the world least expected it. Midway through the match, Cena delivered his signature offense, rallying the Paris crowd with a surge of momentum. Logan staggered, desperate to turn the tide, and all eyes were on the ring. Then, suddenly, chaos struck. From the crowd, figures emerged. The Bloodline had arrived, but this time it was not in unity. This was not the calculated interference fans had seen before. It was something rawer, darker, more violent. The attack was swift and shocking. A member of the Bloodline stormed the ring, not to aid Roman's cause, but to tear it down from within. Cena and Logan were left stunned as fists flew, the match temporarily forgotten as betrayal unfolded before the world. The Paris arena gasped in disbelief, their cheers replaced by silence and then fury as the cracks in the empire finally split wide open. Roman was nowhere to be found in that moment, and perhaps that was the point. For years he had been the central force, but on this night, his absence only magnified the betrayal. This wasn't about protecting the tribal chief, it was about rejecting him, about destroying everything he had built by shattering his family's unity on a stage where the world was watching. Cena, ever the veteran, tried to rally the crowd and restore order, but even he seemed shaken. Logan, for all his bravado, looked stunned, caught in the reality that he was witnessing not just wrestling history, but family implosion. The ring, once the site of spectacle, had transformed into a battlefield of betrayal. Backstage whispers suggest that this attack was months in the making. Some say the resentment had boiled too long, that Roman's grip on the family had strangled the very loyalty he demanded. Others claim outside forces encouraged the rebellion, using the Paris clash as the perfect distraction to deliver the ultimate statement. Whatever the truth, the whispers agree on one thing: the Bloodline will never be the same. In Paris, Cena and Logan's match became a side story to something far more seismic. The betrayal shook not only the fans but also the locker room, where superstars whispered in disbelief, some angry, some sympathetic. A dynasty thought untouchable had been pierced, and the reverberations were immediate. Roman's enemies celebrated, calling this the beginning of the end. His allies, however, saw danger in the collapse. Without unity, without fear binding them together, the bloodline becomes vulnerable, and a vulnerable bloodline is an empire ready to be conquered. Paris was not just a night of betrayal, it was the opening of a floodgate. Cena and Logan eventually finished their match, but no one will remember the winner. What fans will carry with them is the image of the bloodline tearing itself apart under the Paris lights. Gold, glory, and championships all faded into the background as the deeper story of family betrayal claimed the night. The crowd's chants shifted from excitement to disbelief, from energy to silence. Some booed, some cried, others simply sat in stunned awe, realizing they had witnessed the night the dynasty cracked. For many, it felt less like a wrestling show and more like a family tragedy unfolding in real time. Whispers backstage turned to predictions. Some claimed Roman would retaliate with vengeance like never before, determined to punish betrayal with blood. Others said the family members who lashed out would form their own rebellion, creating a war that could split WWE down the middle. Paris had not just hosted a match, it had birthed a civil war. Legends of the business, men and women who had seen dynasties rise and fall, shook their heads. They recognized the signs, the inevitability of power consumed by its own hunger. They saw in the bloodline what history had always warned: no empire, no matter how dominant, lasts forever when built on fear. The younger stars in the locker room watched in awe and fear. Some saw opportunity in the collapse, a chance to rise where once there was no space. Others feared the fallout, knowing that when family turns on family, the violence is not just for show, it is deeply personal, deeply painful, and utterly unforgiving. Roman's silence after Paris was deafening. No statement, no appearance, no explanation, only the heavy knowledge that the man who called himself the tribal chief had been betrayed on a stage he could not control. The absence of his voice made the betrayal even louder, echoing through every hallway and headline. Fans worldwide debated endlessly. Was this the beginning of Roman's downfall, or a setup for a rebirth even more dominant? Was this betrayal a mistake, or the only way his family members could break free from years of suffocation? Paris left no answers, only questions that cut to the heart of legacy and loyalty. Cena, in interviews, spoke of the chaos with a somber tone. He called it heartbreaking to see a family implode, reminding fans that WWE may tell stories in the ring, but the emotions behind them are painfully real. Even Logan, usually smug and unshaken, admitted the Paris night was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The arena crew who watched from behind the curtain said the atmosphere was unlike anything they had ever felt. Not excitement, not joy, but a tension so thick it was suffocating, as if everyone present knew they had witnessed history, the kind that changes everything going forward. The betrayal in Paris didn't just mark a turning point for the bloodline, it left scars across the entire WWE landscape. Every rivalry, every alliance, every story now carries the shadow of that implosion. The family's collapse isn't just their own, it ripples outward, reshaping the company itself. And so, the legacy of Paris is not the clash between John Cena and Logan Paul, but the fracture of the bloodline under its own weight. Titles and victories will fade into record books, but betrayal lives forever in memory. What unfolded was not just storyline but tragedy, the crumbling of a family under the burden of power. Because in WWE, betrayals cut deeper than steel, scars outlast championships, and silence speaks louder than victory celebrations. When blood turns against blood, trust dies, and legacies shatter. And no matter how high the empire, when it falls with a thunder that echoes for generations.